Well, good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for coming out to Mayor Bowser's Budget Engagement Forum. We're so excited to see so many friendly, happy, excited faces to be here to talk about their budget priorities and share their ideas with their neighbors, Mayor Bowser and her administration. If you are a part of the administration and I see you trying to be very nice and friendly and standing on the side of the room, I need you to sit at a table so that you can share your ideas as well with these residents from across all 8 wards. And we're about to get started. And so make sure that you're turning to your neighbor, introducing yourself, introducing some of the priorities that you're here to talk about. And at each of those tables, you should have a facilitator. Facilitators, do you mind raising your hands, making sure your table knows who you are? Thank you for being here tonight. And so as you move to your tables, it would be great if you could start off with an unbiased allocation of $100. And so everybody's got a budget game in front of them, and it says start right at the top. On the right-hand side, I need you to fill that out and allocate the amount of money that you believe should be spent on each of these 6 priorities. If you had $100, your budget is $100. All right, and we want your unbiased viewpoint of that. And pretty soon, at the end of this conversation, I'm going to ask you to do that one more time and see if your priorities have shifted based on your conversations with your neighbors. Once again, welcome to Mayor Bowser's Budget Engagement Forum. We're so excited to have you all here. Thank you for coming out on a slightly chillier evening to talk a little bit about the next year's budget. And without further ado, I'm so excited to introduce to you Mayor Bowser.
Thank you, Lindsay. Thank you. Well, good evening, everybody. I am so happy to be here with all of you at the beautiful Watkins Elementary School. Let's hear it for Watkins. Let's give a big round of applause for all of the students here at Watkins. And all of the staff here at Watkins. And Principal Bell, thank you for your wonderful hospitality. Let's give Principal Bell a big round of applause. We are now starting our 3rd budget engagement forum for this season. On Tuesday, we launched our season with a senior telephone town hall focused on the budget. Over 850 seniors listened on the phone, watched on Channel 16, and 50 Ward 5 seniors joined us down at City Hall to talk about the budget. Last night, we were at our University of the District of Columbia, where 400 neighbors joined us to talk about the budget. Tonight, we're here at Watkins, and on Saturday at 10 a.m., we'll be at Kramer Middle School in Ward 8. All of these budget engagement forums, we're going to cover the same material, are really focused on you helping us balance the budget. We are going to hear from the city administrator and from my budget director about where we are in the process. They're going to give you some facts about what our budget is right now in FY19. And then you're going to look at the major categories of spending that we have at your table and make your own budget using a $100 budget. Then you're going to listen to your neighbors and friends, and hopefully you will be able to understand their priorities too. Some of our priorities are the same, but depending on where we live, how old we are, where we are in our lives, we may have different things that we want to focus on. And then you are, as a group, going to decide how your table, giving all your different interests and backgrounds and passions and needs, how you will be able to balance your budget. And then we will come together at the end and talk about how we got there. Over the last 3 budgets, we have made significant commitments to all of the things that you told us to focus on. How we invest in housing, how we invest in public education, how we invest in public safety, and how we create jobs and opportunities for all of our residents. The truth is, we are living in prosperous times in the District of Columbia. Now, our challenge is, how do we spread that prosperity to more people in our city? And many mayors across this nation would trade places with me in a minute because we are a growing city, and because we have grown strategically, we're able to make critical investments in the things that we need for all of our residents. So that's really what we're here to talk about. So I'm going to turn now to the city administrator, who will give you an overview of our schedule, and then you'll hear from our budget director about some specific investments. Thank you all.
Thank you, Mayor Bowser. Good evening, everyone. It's great to see you all. So my name is Jenny Reed, and I am the Mayor's Director of Budget and Performance Management. And I'm here to give you a little bit of background on the budget process and our budget ourselves to help you make your decisions tonight in this budget engagement forum. So first, let me talk a little bit about the budget cycle. The first part of our preparation for the budget cycle really begins with sitting down with our agency directors. So in January, my team and I sit down with every single agency and hear their proposal for where we should be making investments and spending our resources in the upcoming year. We take that feedback, and then we come out to the community and we start doing these engagement forums like we're doing with you all today. So we also start to hear—
I'm going to interrupt you one second. Because I invited Chairman Mendelson to come, and I know that he has to get to another engagement. But now that he's here, I want to introduce him to our third budget engagement forum. Now, we'll tell Phil, I didn't get to tell you earlier, but what we're here to do, you're here to help me prepare the budget. So when I send it to the council, they could just approve it. No changes, just say yes. And then we'll get to work in FY19. Phil Mendelson.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening. It's great to see so many of you here tonight. Just as the mayor is here to hear what you all have to say and to see what you think when you're looking at the challenge, I want to hear that as well. The process, which has been explained to you, is one where the mayor does a lot of work to put together a balanced budget, submits it to the council, and then sometimes to her chagrin or her predecessor's chagrin, we take it apart. But actually, we don't take it fully apart. We have hearings, lots of hearings, and we get lots of testimony about where there are additional needs. And I think it's good that this is a process where there's a lot of looking at it, first by you all, by the mayor, by the council, the public, through our council hearings. It's actually an awful lot of work, and it's a complicated budget, and we have to do it in a very short period of time because that's what the Home Rule Act says. So the more community involvement there is, the better informed we are. That's why I'm here to hear what you all have to say and what you think about this, and that's why I'm glad to see so many of you here tonight. So I'm going to stick around for a little bit, and again, thank you all so much, and thank you, Mayor Bowser.
All right, so that was perfect timing because right after we get your feedback and we take that to the mayor, we prepare our budget, which we then send to the DC Council for consideration. So the next step in our process is really the legislative process. And as the chairman mentioned, they hold a series of hearings on every agency's budget. They take a vote, and then the budget is enacted. After the budget gets enacted, that's where we turn to the execution side, and the other half of my team really comes in. So we want to make sure that all of those dollars, all of those priorities that you have asked us to invest in, that you have told us to make an effort in, we act on those. So we want to make sure that those dollars are executed well, we're hitting the outcomes that you expect us to hit, and if there are any problems along the way, we're working with our agencies to correct them. So as we go through the execution and accountability phase, we're trying to close the loop on all those investments and make sure that we hit those marks. And then we wrap up with our annual financial audit to tell us how well we spent those dollars. And we're really proud to say that we've had 22 consecutive clean audit opinions, and it's our third year in a row with no material weaknesses found. Yes. Excellent. So a little bit about the nuts and bolts of the DC budget. So the district is very unique when it comes to its budget. So we are a city, state, and county all in one, and school district. And so we provide a wide variety of programs and services. It takes a $13.4 billion budget to do that. The majority of those funds, about $10 billion, is local funds. About $4 billion is federal grants. And $1 billion is what we're spending on the capital infrastructure, so funds to build this beautiful school building and those fields out there that you see in this fiscal year. So a little bit about how that pie is broken down. We spend the majority of our funding in the health and human services area. So this is for our healthcare services. This is for our programs to help make homelessness rare, brief, and non-recurring. We spend the next largest share of our pie on education. So this helps provide the funding to hire our teachers and our principals in our schools. It helps provide funding to our parks and recreation centers and to our University of the District of Columbia. Our next largest share is government operations. So this is where a lot of the funding is to kind of keep the city running day to day. So it's where your trash collectors are, it's where the snow plows are, it's where your technology services are in your Department of Human Resources. Public safety is the next largest share of the pie. This is your Metropolitan Police Department, this is your fire and emergency medical services, your 911 call takers, all the things we need to keep the city safe. Then we also have a smaller share of about $325 million on housing. This is our Housing Production Trust Fund, where we've invested $100 million every single year to create more affordable housing. And then lastly, you have our pie on jobs and economic development. This is where you find our programs like the Summer Youth Employment Program and Career Connections. And so all of this makes up the DC government budget and the programs and services you see and receive every day. And now I want to turn it over to the city administrator, who's going to talk to you a little bit about our key priorities in these buckets. Thank you.
Well, good evening. Thank you, Jenny, and thank you, Mayor. It is budget season in the District of Columbia, and so what that is, developing the fiscal year 19 budget is one of the most important things that we do, and that's why hearing from you is so important, so you can help shape what the investments in our government and our community will be. Because the budget is a reflection of our priorities, and it's what we how we demonstrate our values. So I want to talk a little bit more about some of these key priorities and what we have invested in those priorities. So as you talk and work at your tables and think about where you think we should allocate that precious dollar, that you have some sense of the kind of investments and priorities that we have been making in these areas. And so let's first start with education. In education, we have done a lot of work to continue to advance the educational system and opportunities for all district residents. We've invested in our teachers to the tune of $174 million, providing them a contract that they have not had in 5 years. We spent $1 million in field trips for our children to go to art exhibitions and performance, $6 million for out-of-school time programming, $1.6 billion to support the educational services for 91,000 traditional and charter public school students in the district, $78 million to support the University of the District of Columbia and the community college, nearly $39 million in parks and recreational programming, about $154 million for early learning, and about $38.4 in library services, materials, and programs at our 26 libraries. In the area of health and human services, we make investments here to make sure there's a safety net for residents and families of the District of Columbia, making sure there are supports to be able to get people on a sustainable path and be able to provide for themselves and their family. And so some of these investments have been to reshape our TANF policy so that we can continue to provide cash assistance for families that need it beyond the federal limits. We've spent $12 million in programs that divert young people from the criminal justice system. $1 million to make sure that there are fresh food opportunities in underserved areas. $3 million to be able to have our seniors be able to age in place and stay in their home. Doing things like investing in handrails and ramps for their house. $130 million to deliver on our commitment to close DC General and make sure that homelessness is rare, brief, and non-recurring by having a family. Yeah, that's worth the clap. That is absolutely worth the clap. By making sure our families are in all across the community in every ward and live in safe and decent housing. In the area of public safety, we know that investing in our communities and neighborhoods and making sure that they are safe will continue to make our community prosper. So we've invested nearly $9 million to help recruit and retain police officers, nearly $5 million to hire more firefighters and EMTs, $4.5 million to invest in social workers and correctional officers at the DC jail, $2.3 million to ensure that our returning citizens can transition effectively and well back into the community, about $1.4 million to train some of our vulnerable residents for job opportunities in the district government to put them on a pathway to the middle class. We've invested $1 million to try to divert individuals from using 911 for their primary care medical services and connecting them to a primary care clinic or physician, and that initiative starts this year in 2018. $1.5 million to create the Office of Neighborhood Safety and Engagement, which was a key component of the NEAR Act. $500,000 to provide private security cameras for residents and businesses alike, and $21 million in capital investments to make sure that our public safety agencies have the equipment that they need, like fire trucks and ladder trucks and ambulances to respond to emergencies in the city. We know that affordable housing is a key issue for many residents across the district. That's why we have continued to invest significant money in the Housing Production Trust Fund. We have doubled that amount since Mayor Bowser got elected in 2015, and each year we have invested $100 million in affordable housing. We will do that again in fiscal year 19. We created the Housing Preservation Fund so we can keep affordable units that are already available and online in the district and make sure that they remain affordable for our residents. $3.5 million to support tenants' rights, $17 million to support our cultural economy and arts, $15 million to help low and moderate income families have a down payment to buy a home in the District of Columbia. In the area of jobs and opportunity, we're making investments to make sure that there are access to good paying jobs for the residents of the District of Columbia. That's why we've invested $2.5 million to support entrepreneurs and start businesses in the district. $18.6 million to support the Summer Youth Employment Program, which provides employment opportunities during the summer for more than 10,000 young residents in the district. $10 million for job training programs targeting our residents that have barriers and tough issues to overcome to gain employment, and nearly $2 million in apprenticeship programs to provide people training for those good paying jobs. The Deputy Mayor always claps at this slide, thank you. For government operations, this is really what provides the backbone of our government. This pays for our human resources functions, our purchasing functions, and also some very important services that you will appreciate, like $3.7 million for snow removal, $952,000 to support the statehood campaign so Washington, D.C. can become the 51st state in the nation. And $1.5 million to support additional staff in our waste collection division to make sure we pick up trash consistently on time every week or twice a week, and make sure that we have our recycling initiatives fully staffed. And $300,000 to make sure that we are transparent in sharing our financial information and budget information for members and residents of the community. So with these kinds of investments in mind, I want to invite the Deputy Chief of Staff, Lindsay Parker, back up to give you the instructions for the exercise and game that you will play at your table to try to do the thing that we're doing each and every day throughout the month of February and March, and that is to produce a balanced budget so you can only spend, in this example, $100. So Ms. Parker, why don't you come back up?
Well, thank you, City Administrator, and thank you, Mayor and Chairman and Jenny for getting us started. They've given you the toolkit now, the information, so that you can get budgeting. So for the next 20 minutes, I'd like you to discuss with your neighbors, with your fellow residents and your facilitator, the priorities that you've said are very important to you. So you've taken you've got a game in front of you that has $100 at the bottom of it. It has start at the top corner, and I need you to allocate $100 in each of these priority areas that the city administrator just discussed with you. And share why those are your priorities with the rest of your table. And you've got 20 minutes to do it. And I want you to remember, as you're discussing these priorities, that everybody's voice is equally important. And so everybody at the table ought to participate in this conversation, and you want to make sure that everybody has an equal amount of time. So if you've got 20 minutes, I need to shut up, and you need to get going, but think about making sure that you're only talking for about 2 to 3 minutes about your priorities, and then we'll come back together as a group and talk about a table budget. So let's get budgeting. Thanks. Anyone done? Table 8 has finished, but just table 8. All right, so you've got 5 more minutes.
Good evening, everyone. I'm John Falchicchio. I'm Mayor Bowser's Chief of Staff. Just wanted to ask everyone, now that you've filled out your individual sheets, if you haven't already, we're going to move to that big board in the middle of the table. Jay at table 8, Jay Melder, hold up that big board. Great. So everybody sees Jay. What you're going to do on one side of the sheet is fill out the highest number for each category that somebody put on their individual sheet. Does that make sense? So if somebody said 50 for education, and that's the highest anybody put, that's what you want to put on the sheet, right? Onto that front side of the sheet, just like Jay's showing. Now what you want to do then is add up the total and see how much it adds up to. My guess is going to be that it's going to be a lot bigger than 100. But the tough part for this is that the budget always has to be balanced. So you got to make some compromises among the table and flip over the sheet and make sure that you get to a budget that adds up to 100. Also, and before you get to that back side of that sheet, before you make it add up to 100, there's a few people who wanted to talk to the group about their the budget priorities that they work in, the areas that they work in. And so we're going to hear from each of the deputy mayors. So first up, at table 13, Courtney Snowden, the deputy mayor for Greater Economic Opportunity. Here she comes, right up here in front of table 5.
Right by table. Well, good evening, everybody. Good evening. Oh, y'all got to do better than that. Hey, y'all. This is fun. We're about to have fun, because you know why? Because this city is made possible in part by a good number of hardworking people who need access to good job training, good economic opportunities, opportunities to start their own small businesses. And so when you think about that jobs and economic opportunities section, that's who we're talking about. And so you're going to think I should give that 4% or 1% or 7%. That's wrong. Think about 20%, 25%. So I'm the Deputy Mayor for Greater Economic Opportunity. I work with 5 agencies: the Department of Employment Services, which is charged with developing apprenticeship programs, job training programs, workforce programs, and helping to make sure our residents are ready for the jobs that exist today and the ones that are coming down the pike tomorrow. I work with the Department of Small and Local Business Development, who work to make sure that all of our corridors across the city have thriving small businesses. And we do that through a number of programs like the Aspire to Entrepreneurship Program and Project 500 and the Procurement Technical Assistance Training Center. All of these programs help to get our businesses ready to create even more jobs in all of our communities in all 8 wards. I work with the Office of African American Affairs, the Commission on Fathers, Men, and Boys, and the Workforce Investment Council. And I'm a ton of fun. So when you think about that budget section, you think about me and give me a good number. Kevin's gonna tell you he needs more money, but he doesn't. I need more.
Hi. My name's Kevin Donahue, Deputy Mayor for Public Safety and the Deputy City Administrator. And I'm going to talk about public safety and operations. I'm not as much fun as Courtney. However, I have very cute Charlie next to me, who is now on TV. And she gave $20 to public safety. Keep that in mind. So I've been to every one of these forums since the mayor came into office. And so I know from experience that there's some categories that are trading in 20s and 50s. And I know public safety and operations might be trading in 5s, 10s, maybe a few singles in getting to 100. So what I'll say when you think about that is, one, I look on the bright side that, as the mayor tells me, if we do our job all across these categories, the city gets safer because we address the underlying root causes of violence. But I'll also say, I moved to DC as a teenager about 30 years ago. There was a number in here in public safety that was a lot higher than it is now. And that's how much violence and crime we have in DC. In operations, when I moved here 30 years ago, the discussion when it snowed was not, is school getting canceled, but is snow going to get plowed? The conversation has shifted. Now, there's another number that was smaller 30 years ago, and that's the size of this pie. It's much bigger now, and I would say there's a connection between those two things. That if a city is well-run and a city is safe, you create the conditions to have a bigger pie so you can all get what you want. So when it comes down to those 1s and 5s, don't forget to add them up to public safety and operations so you can have everything else.
Great. Thank you, Deputy State Administrator. Next up, Deputy Mayor for Education, Anna Smith.
Thank you. Thank you, John. Thank you, all of you, for being here tonight. My name is Anna Smith, and I have the privilege of serving as our interim Deputy Mayor for Education. And I'm excited to tell you about why education should be #1 on your list. It is not at the top of your list for any wrong reason. So please, we get to support a whole bunch of great work. I support DC Public Schools. Thank you again to Principal Bell and Watkins Elementary School for welcoming us today. We serve DC Public Charter School Board, the Office of the State Superintendent for Education, Department of Parks and Recreation, DC Public Library, and the University of the District of Columbia. I love that there's a library fan out here too. Every day, I get to support really great work that is helping to make sure that our kids are ready for college, career, and life, to make sure that they have great learning environments and places to learn, grow, and thrive, recreational spaces, learning spaces. And one of the ways I think about our work is the 3 buckets. Our job is to provide excellent schools for all of our students. Our job is to make sure that kids get to and from safely to school every single day, and to make sure that we have learning opportunities before and after school and year-round. So we are making sure that our kids are ready for all of the opportunities that we know that they deserve. So please invest in education, because we know that investing in our kids today is investing into a lifetime of success. Thank you.
And one of Anna's partners in education is here tonight with her. There's a lot of cabinet members in the room, but we wanted to give a special shout out to one of the newest members of the cabinet, the interim chancellor of the District of Columbia Public Schools, Amanda Alexander. And she's back by table 18. She'll be coming around tonight to the tables to say hello, introduce herself. Please be sure to introduce yourself as well. Next up, Brian Kenner, the Deputy Mayor for Planning and Economic Development. Excuse me.
Thank you. How's everybody doing? Good. Okay, a little test for everybody, right? I got $3 in my hand. $3. Why is that important? If you look at your sheet in terms of the percentage that is spent on housing, you will see 3% of our budget is spent on housing. I know, and part of my job is to make sure that we have quality, affordable housing everywhere in the District of Columbia. And I know, just like me, you all think that that's a priority too. And if you think that $3, $3 little dollars, is sufficient to meet our housing demands, that's one thing. But I know that, like me, you think that going north of that, talking about 10%, 15%, maybe even 20% of our total budget spent on housing is an important investment, not just for where we are today in Washington, D.C., but where we are in the future. Again, I'm Brian Kenner. I'm the Deputy Mayor for Planning and Economic Development. In addition to housing, I also cover such things as the Department of Transportation. Who likes potholes? Nobody likes potholes. Department of Transportation is in our cluster as well, so to make sure that we have adequate streets, adequate transportation throughout the District of Columbia. The Department of Energy and the Environment is in our cluster. How many people like sustainability? Woo, yes. All of these quality investments that we make in the District of Columbia are expressions of the priorities that we have. And so hopefully, as you're filling out your sheets, you will think about us in terms of making those investments higher than what they are today. Thank you.
Great. And then last but not least, the Deputy Mayor for Health and Human Services, Hai-Suk Chung.
Come here, Noah. Guess who I met? Noah, what do you think? How should we spend $10?
I don't know.
Oh, she said actually to me, she thought it should be around after-school care. And I said, that is not in my cluster, but I will accept that. My name is Hai-Suk Chung, and I am the Deputy Mayor for Health and Human Services. This is not our first time the Deputy Mayors had to pitch, and I have to say I was a little selfish last time for asking for 100% of the funds to go to Health and Human Services. So today I will retract that request and push back a little bit, but I want to tell you that in our 8 agencies, we are doing some incredible, innovative reform to take care of our residents, no matter what race, no matter what ethnicity, no matter if you're covered or not covered with health insurance. And we are here to say that we're going to continue that fight, to work to provide all the resources needed to be the fittest, the healthiest, the most incredible city for all our residents, including NOAA. And so I have a couple of directors here, including from DCOA, from DOH, CFSA, and I saw a few other directors, and they were all telling me what I need to do. Oh, DDS, I'm sorry, Andrew, I didn't forget you. But my director of Aging, Office of Aging said, I cannot forget our seniors. We also do a lot, woo, all right. I've heard from many of you, aging is living. Hi. All right, so without further ado, I will end, but I will say one more time that 100% is okay. But if you want to get to 50, I've seen some of you put 40% down in the Health and Human Services, and I would say that that is an investment to the most important asset, which is all of you and all of the residents of DC. So thanks very much. Have fun.
Great. So thanks, everybody. Thanks, everyone, for listening to the pitches. Let's work as a table now to get to 100 on the back of your sheet. So please compromise. Let's talk about our ideas, and let's get to 100 on the back of those sheets. Lindsay, how are we doing? Is everybody tallied up?
I think we're getting close, John.
All right.
I've got some excited people ready to talk about their budget over here.
So what we're going to do next is we're going to hear from some of the tables to hear how they spent their $100. So let's make those tallies final. All right. All right, can we have everybody's attention? Can we have everybody's attention? Just real quick. Everybody look at your individual sheet just for one moment. Can everybody look at your individual sheet that you filled out yourself? Lindsay, are you ready?
I'm ready.
I'm gonna call out some categories, and by a show of applause, and you could raise your voices, show of applause, let's see which category got the most money on your individual sheet. All right, ready? I'm gonna pick at random. How many people put the most of their $100 in government operations?
Woo!
All right. So everybody knows it's a sign of applause or by voice. Government operations.
Woo!
Okay. All right, got better that second time. Kevin, they just didn't understand the rule, the game. All right, let's see. Let's try it again. How about public safety? Okay. How about housing? Okay. Jobs and economic opportunity? Health and human services? All right, one more. Education? Where's the chancellor? Did she hear that? And also, I don't know if there's the chancellor. And also, I don't know if we acknowledge Principal Bell, who's here as well. She's got to feel good about that, and we thank Watkins for hosting us tonight. So now we want to hear from a couple tables about how they tabulated their $100. And so we're going to start. Does anybody want to volunteer to go first? Well, since I didn't hear a lot of energy, let's go to table 18. Let's go to table 18.
Frank, that's you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is LaToya.
Oh, and you're going to have 100 seconds as well.
Sure. My name is LaToya Young. #safe housing. Okay. And I'm with the DC Coalition Against Domestic Violence. Yay for Team DC, CADV. So we allocated most of our funds. This is in the final budget. The Fipling run. Yep. Thank you. Awesome. Okay, so I'll start with the bulk of the money, which we allocated to Health and Human Services with $24. And then our next one, highest one, was education with $21. Housing, because we believe housing is a humane right for everyone. Yay, housing. Is $19. And then public safety, because we have Chief Newsom at our table, is $14. And then for jobs and economic opportunity and government operations, we leveled them out to $11.
Great.
That's it.
So you guys made it 100 on the dot, right?
100 on the dot.
Okay,
Absolutely.
Great. And which table, did any tables go lower than $100? Okay. Just had to ask. Did any tables go above $100? Now, we don't want to reward bad behavior, but let's hear from table 1 and hear how they did it.
You went over $100?
All right.
As an advisor to the mayor, we can't go over $100.
It's got to be balanced.
Well, we can't go into a deficit, but we can raise more money, which is what we did at our table. Two of the ways that we wanted to raise more money were by closing the carried interest loophole at the local level, which would net DC another $150 million a year, as well as raising the estate tax back to where it was before it got cut last year, which would cost another $50 million, raise another $40 or $50 million. And then to walk through the rest of our levels, we had $29 for education, $13 for public safety, $6 for jobs and economic opportunity, $19 for housing, because we believe that will help address a lot of the other priorities here on the list. $13 for government operations, shout out to fair elections, which would cost a nickel of that to fully fund. And then $25 for health and human services.
Great. And what did yours total up to?
105.
105, okay. And you actually, although you went to 105, you actually only used 60 of your 100 seconds. So let's go to table 13.
Hello. We did $30 for education.
Representing the University of District of Columbia, that had to go down that way. Thank you very much. We then put $8, no disrespect, to public safety, and we have a good reason why, because like our other table in front of us, we believe we could raise additional money.
Okay, we put $20 on it, jobs. Seniors can work too.
We then put $12 towards housing.
We put $10, the government operations.
And $20 to Health and Human Service for a balanced budget of $100.
Great. And I like how you guys did that presentation. Good job. Now, up next, let's go to table 3.
Okay, hello everyone. So you guys might be surprised at our numbers. What's your name? I'm sorry, my name is Matthew, and I'm from Ward 2. Great. And I'm a grad student at Gallaudet University. Thank you, thank you. So you're probably looking at our numbers and wondering why do we have such low numbers on education and public safety. I heard some say 30 for education. I understand that fully. However, we here at the deaf community feel that public schools have not valued the deaf community very well. And we're not saying it in a negative light, but however, the deaf community doesn't value DCPS as well either. And so our main focus is on Gallaudet University, which is a private school. So our other main priority is job and economic opportunities. We feel that the deaf community can really benefit from more jobs and hiring more deaf people and people with disabilities, and help support more small businesses, opportunities for people with disabilities. And last week, they had a vote to try to cut the ADA, and that's really scary for people with disabilities. And so we really need to step up and be a community that says that we're not going to ignore our disabled people. And housing is another priority. We put $20 into housing. And I think that's very important for 2 reasons. Our mayor, Mayor Bowser, hello, is very concerned about displacement, and I think that is a very high priority, and we need to put our mouth, where we need to put our money where we put our mouth at. And so we really need to really put our income into housing and really care about, make sure everybody has affordable housing. And all the vacant homes that needs to become more public housing for the deaf and the disabled community. And then government operations, we feel that's a high priority because we can do so much to improve the state of our streets. For our deaf and blind members here, we have a deaf blind person here, and our streets can be vastly improved. And there's so many potholes in the roads and barriers in the sidewalks, and deaf people and blind people are continuously falling, and we need to do better and put more money to the roads, and also to Department of Energy and Department of Environment, and also to DOT, Department of Transportation. So we can have more safer streets so people can be able to commute to their destination safely. So also, Health and Human Services, we feel that's another priority. And we try to put our budget, that reflects what's important to the deaf community. So thank you.
Thank you, Matt.
Does everybody know how to sign thank you? So I'd say thank you. All right. Which table wants to go next?
Hi, my name is David Washington. I'm in Ward 6.
Evelyn Minor, Ward 8.
And we chose as our highest category education because we think that everything is connected to education. Once we get that in order, because throughout America, there's functional illiteracy that's not being addressed by adults, especially high school kids. They're going to college unprepared in too many cases, and they're given inflated grades, and that's just not working. So we think once we get education on track, that's going to lead to economic development. We have it at 20. And I would love to see manufacturing jobs brought back to America, to Washington, D.C. The things that we're consuming, we should also be producing. They're saying with NAFTA and the Asian Pact, they're not coming back. We don't believe that. We think we can bring these jobs back and we can bring it within the city. Power, electricity, the high-speed trains, putting cable underground for electrical work, that can be done by DC citizens. So that's why we chose those at a very high rate. Evelyn?
Thank you. Also, with public safety, we did $10. We definitely need our fire department and our metropolitan police department walking the streets and walking the beats. $20 for jobs and economic opportunity. $15 for housing. Our seniors are really in need of housing, affordable housing. We don't want their houses to be taken away from them, so we definitely need housing. Government operations, 10%, sorry. And $21.25 for health and human services. I work with the aging division with East River Family Strength and Collaborative, Ward 8 Aging Division. And our seniors are really, really suffering. They need more meals, more community dining programs, more recreation activities. Our CFA division needs more support in our families, and our behavioral health department definitely needs more mental health services for our consumers in Washington, D.C. So I just want to put a plug in for health and human services all the way.
Fantastic. Great. Thank you, Table 20. All right. Did any other tables want to tell us how they did? Let's hear from Table 11.
So we have significantly increased the education budget because we want to put the money into neighborhood schools, our by right schools. That's right. Let's hear it for neighborhood schools like Watkins. And we also want to make sure that these beautifully renovated schools that we have are properly maintained and repaired. We have $10 for public safety, and we want to make sure that includes full funding for the NEAR Act so that we take a public health approach to prevent crime before it starts. $10 for jobs and economic opportunity. We have doubled the budget for housing to 6% and want to make sure that includes repair of our precious public housing stock, which is our permanently affordable housing that's so important to maintain. We have $13.05 for government operations because we want to make sure that includes 5 cents for the DC Fair Elections Act, which is a small investment in making sure that all our public dollars are spent to serve the public interest and not special interests. And we're going to get some savings because we're going to spend some money on electric buses, which last almost 3 times as long as diesel buses and produce cleaner air so that our kids don't suffer from asthma. And then we're going to, unfortunately, we kind of ran out of money, so we had to cut the Health and Human Services budget. But I personally endorse the idea of Table 1 to raise some more tax revenue. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Table 11. And in front of you, you have a packet of information that's got some of the information that we talked about tonight. It also has a pledge in here about saving DC Tag. Does everybody know what DC Tag is? DC Tag? So DC Tag is a tuition assistance grant. It's a $40 million federally funded program, but the person who lives at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue zeroed it out in their budget. And so what we're trying to do is send a message that DC residents support DC Tag. So look into your packet, fill that out, and stand with us as we try to get that restored. The other thing is there's other worksheets in here. Take a moment to fill those out for us, and you could just leave them on the table, and we'll collect them at the end of the night. So let's hear from one more table. Lindsay, which table do you think we should go to?
I think we have to go to my favorite Budget Engagement Forum participant tonight.
Oh, wow. You picked a favorite?
Charlie.
Charlie.
Who's going to speak for Charlie's table, Charlie?
Charlie.
Yeah, Mary's going to do it. Mary, do you want to join? Or Charlie, do you want to join Mary over here?
Why don't we have Mary and Charlie come up front?
I think they should come up front.
Yeah, come on up
Come on
front.
up front. Let's go.
Oh, you can come up on stage. That's fine.
What? Okay. My name is Mary Proctor, and I'm from the Capitol Hill Village, and there are other members of us here. And I want to start from the bottom, and I want to start first by the Office of Aging slogan, which is "Aging is living." And then I'm going to add the Capitol Hill Village slogan, which is "Aging is the future of all of you." So the bottom, we noticed at table 8 that there's $43 out of $100 now in Health and Human Services. This supports an enormous number of old people that have used up all their savings and have ended up in nursing homes and other facilities where they are needed. If this budget were to be cut, and I noticed 25% in some of you, there would be a lot of old people wandering around the street looking for the people who cut the budget. So be careful when you think you can get money out of HHS.
Mayor, I think that was the first time I've ever heard us threatened at a budget engagement forum.
Great.
So then we knew that education needed some more money for libraries, better maintenance. We started with the percentages that are actually in the current budget. So that one went up 1%. Public safety is very important, agree with all the arguments. That went up 1%. Jobs is very important. We get our kids out of schools. They need to be able to find jobs. Housing, the enormous amount of the housing is maintained and operated by the DC Housing Authority. That's why it seems like a small budget. So we decided not to increase it, even though it's very important. Government operations is taking a hit because we think they can be more efficient in plowing. And luckily there was no snow. The weather cooperated this year. And we might be able to cut back trash collection, by one a week, because people are getting better and better about not using plastic bags, etc. So then we're back to Health and Human Services. Aging is the future.
Great. Charlie, how'd you guys do?
We did good.
You did very well. You did. Thank you.
Thank you. While Charlie goes back to the table, let's bring up Mayor Bowser just to close us out and kind of tell us some stuff that she heard tonight. Mayor Bowser.
Well, thank you, everybody, for being so engaged in this process. I think that you experienced what we experienced as we developed the budget, the push and pull of priorities from people from different walks of life, different passions, and different needs. And you did a very good job. I saw in our last session, many more people went over budget, but you balanced your budgets. Many people also invested across all 6 categories. Sometimes people feel so strongly about affordable housing that they'll put all $100 in affordable housing. But I think you also saw what we see in needing to make critical investments across our categories. So I look forward to our last session on Saturday at Kramer. So tell all of your neighbors who haven't had a chance to get to a budget session. I also look forward to submitting a balanced budget that reflects not only our priorities, but our values as Washingtonians. And I dare say, in our last 3 budgets, that's exactly what we've been able to do, to budget the money the right way, but to also spend the money the right way, to produce all of the housing and education needs and jobs and opportunity that we promised. And we continue to work with you to do that for this season too. Thank you, everybody. Be safe.